Hey there, this is Natalie, and I wanted to thank you for checking out To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. I am very excited because recently I celebrated the podcast's first birthday. And what better way to celebrate than to try and build up this community of tolerators and gather them all in one space? To do that, I launched our Patreon where you can make a monthly contribution to the podcast and get some amazing benefits like early access to episodes, ad-free episodes, some virtual hangout time with me and other tolerators, and other ways to really allow us to get to know one another. Any support that you can give to the podcast will be so helpful in the second year to help me elevate the content and grow our community. There is a link in the show notes that contains all the information you need to help the podcast grow. I love and appreciate every one of you. Happy birthday, Team Tolerator. Hey Tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about how society and our culture set us up to feel shameful about dating.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you'll recognize our guest because it's Elizabeth from our 90s protagonist episode, and she's back and she's going to chat with me about religion, dating, and growing up in the Bible Belt. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. So glad to be back. And boy, I mean, I've gotten hot all day thinking about like how to streamline my thoughts about this because it is, boy, it's a subject I have thoughts on.
So let's talk about purity culture. Ugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We kind of go for it.
No, go. I mean, I was going to ask you, like, I feel like I've heard you talk about this on the podcast, actually. Have you been to a father-daughter dance?
I have been to one father-daughter dance. I haven't been to a purity ball.
Okay. Fortunately, I have not either.
Okay.
I imagine they are, we'll get into it, but like there are flavors of Southern patriarchal Christianity. And that, because I live in an urban area. Memphis is very different from the rest of Tennessee in some ways and not in others. But I live like in a blue city in a red state. So it's been interesting. My specific sort of view it of my own front door, if you will, of just like how people find it acceptable to behave, both inside and outside of their homes, works, etc., about a topic that genuinely as a value, I feel, is incredibly private and pretty like, I don't care what you believe. It's pretty sacred. Like it to me is not something that is necessary to or polite to just bring up like you're asking someone for their macaroni and cheese recipe. Yet I find myself renouncing Satan at job interviews. Like that's happened. So yeah, it's just,
I mean, I'm really glad that neither one of us had to marry our fathers in a weird like dress when we were 8. I did do a first communion where they also dress us up as brides because I think we're like kind of marrying. I don't know. Why are
and also when you're baptized in Catholic churches anyway, you're wearing that like long ass dress then too. And
they're always dressing us up as
they're
brides.
like, bitch, you're a bride. Like you better know and respect your position in this life. And then you breed and then you're done.
I have this picture. Well, I don't have it, but I know that this picture exists of me and I'm in like the full veil and the bridal dress for my first communion. And I'm like making prayer hands.
Girl, I have this. We're doing the same thing. I literally have that photo. And do you know what's so creepy and so true? Every time I would see that photo, because it was prominently displayed in my parents' house, I would think to myself, yes, I believe this was the first photo that I learned how to do even like any kind of like duck lip, look up under my lashes kind of thing. which is kind of what religion does to you, which we'll talk about, which is like teach you in a weird vacuum how to attract the attention and favor of a mystical being.
Right.
And you know, like it really, and especially I think within some of the more severe flavors of Christianity, you have it's very confusing for young people, the intensity for which you are supposed to feel for Jesus Christ and the intensity you feel for Sean Hunter. Like I had a trouble discerning the two and felt very much like my fantasies of, I mean, how inappropriate can I be here? I don't.
You can be. I'm trying to remember who I told. I think it was my sister in the car when I was driving to her house to see Hadestown. But I remember, I think we were talking about how we find Hades to be very like a very sexy villain in the Greek pantheon. And she said something about like, you know, Christianity, like we don't have sexy gods. I was like, they made white Jesus very sexy on that cross.
You're wrong about that, girl. Go find you a picture of Mary Magdalene at his feet. Like, right. I had sexy Jesus in my church.
Yeah, they make Jesus look like he's into some weird shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then they just like throw it in this bucket of like daddy issues and like you have to because it's religion and your parents told you have to in their classes and shit. And like I was so at once satisfied with the process because I am diagnosed OCD thanks to my parents who I do love. But honestly, like that, if you put something like an anxiety disorder in with it, it really can make you feel very much like, not to sound like every kid in a 90s movie that's goth and anti-establishment, but like it's just organized religion is kind of bullshit in a lot of ways, I feel like.
Yeah.
If you are doing it in the way in which I have seen it practiced pretty much my whole life.
In some ways, like, because I don't know. I think as I came to develop my own spirituality and my own way to vibe with the earth and its energy and Mother Nature and the people around me, I understand why people have clung to the like normie views of religion, because like my friend has told me before, like, well, whenever like mom had a hard time providing for Christmas, there was always a church lady to donate toys that she could then wrap up.
This is part of my larger point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The community that is there,
right?
Especially like living somewhere where it is so integral to the culture of the society.
Mm-hmm.
You almost feel like you're opting, if you're not engaging heavily with all of it, you're opting out of, in a lot of ways, like a support system or some type of like larger, just communal network or family type, you know, like it really is something that I multiple times have returned to. In like, we can get into, I'm comfortable getting into it as deep as you want, but like I was in like a busy mom's Bible study and for the record, like I have no idea what I believe. I don't think anybody has the answer. I don't know. Like there's energy and feelings and vibe. I mean, I hate to sound like that, but like I feel like it's necessary for the record to sort of say where I stand. But I was raised Catholic and I have visited most denominations, I would say, of Christianity, their churches here, with friends, with like, it's sort of, I would love to meet somebody who lives here who has not done that.
Right.
Has not visited their friend's church, because like it's just part of like courting and friendship in the South, I think, in a lot of places, definitely here. Like I don't have a ton of friends who don't belong to a home, like a church home.
So we almost had, my family had a very lackadaisical relationship with church. We went to one pretty inconsistently. I was raised Catholic, and I think it was important to my grandmother on my mother's side of the family that I was also raised Catholic because they all went to church together and then we like moved away. So my parents tried their best to raise me Catholic, but they almost didn't have the stamina to pull it off. Like we
It's
were
a
like,
lot.
yeah, we were Easter Christmas Catholics.
Right. What did they? There used to be an acronym for that in school. I remember, like you would call. There was like a shortened name for that. I went to a Catholic school, so we went every week there. And then my mom was a new Catholic. She had joined later in life. She was raised Southern Baptist. My grandfather, her dad, was a preacher in a small town in Mississippi, but she felt very drawn to the Catholic Church and joined like, you know, later in life. And she had me and my brother. It's just interesting. Like you don't meet a ton of Catholics who weren't generational. Like it wasn't like,
right.
There was nobody in my family besides my mom, because my dad didn't even technically convert to the Catholicism. So I don't know. It was interesting. I got double church because she was like an enthusiastic new Catholic. So she wanted to go every Sunday. So we went every Sunday to his family, every Friday at school. And then if it was like a holiday, forget it. Like we were in church every day.
So I went to Catholic school for kindergarten and first grade, and then we moved. And I went to public school from second grade on. Went to a Catholic college, not for any, like, I could full on, like, disremember or, like, not even know that my school was Catholic. The only reason I went was because it was, like, an hour away and it was a small school. So I was like, oh, I can be popular here and go home and do my laundry for free.
Well, best of both worlds. That's the way to do it. You can take a little sexy Jesus for that, girl.
Just a little sexy Jesus. So when I graduated, we had a grotto that you could go and pray in.
Of course.
And sit in.
As one does.
You have a grotto. Yeah. And I was walking my family through the grotto to get to where I needed to line up for graduation. And I told my sister, wave hello to Jesus, because in the cave of the grotto, there was praying Jesus looking up into the light. And she thought that I was talking about like metaphysical Jesus, like say hello to Jesus, we're in the grotto.
Right. That's
so weird. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees praying Jesus and she has like a full meltdown and she's screaming at me. And I was like, what are you screaming about? I told you that that's where Jesus lives. He lives in the grotto.
Holy shit, that's hilarious. Oh my God.
But it always floors me that even though my family, once we moved away from my mom's core group of family that went to church every Sunday together, that we couldn't hold it together and like form a community in our church. But boy, did we make sure that Natalie knew that the only way to be a good little girl was to be pure and to do nothing wrong, because God would know.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I sat next to, you know, the posters that are like days of the week in Spanish, whatever. It's just those like, you get them at the Knowledge Tree or wherever your local like teacher store is. I sat in the fourth grade next to my desk. I just always like get in and be like, this is my life, sitting next to this like 2x4 poster that literally says, don't masturbate, and has a big hand like in the stop sign motion. And it didn't even give you a reason on the poster. It wasn't even like, because you'll grow hair on your palms or some bullshit. It was just like, just don't. Just don't even think about it. But here, we're going to remind you every minute of your day. So like, I did masturbate and felt like shit all the time. I was just like, I mean, I'm fucked from go. Like, I
didn't masturbate, and I didn't sneak into R-rated movies. I didn't do anything because, and it wasn't even like I was worried about God. I was just worried about being disappointing in general. Like,
for sure. Well, that's like, God is just in so many ways, I think the name we give to like just the fear of judgment in general. And I don't know, like I feel you so hard on that. Like where it's like literally a symptom of OCD is you act as if an unseen person is witnessing your actions.
Right.
And the first time I ever was being like in a diagnostic environment, asked questions like this, being tested, like, you know, officially for anything of this type, like it blew my mind. And I literally was like, well, yeah, that's God. Right. And then like I'm talking to this doctor that's like, well, actually, that's very typical behavior of someone who is, you know, like experiencing massive anxiety based on a blend of social conditioning and genetics. And yeah, it's something that I think is used, purity culture, religion in general, Christianity, Southern Christianity very specifically, I think is like incredibly casually used as like a babysitter and a like we like just throw it at kid. Like I've worked in environments where I've seen how early it happens that like fire and brimstone is like imposed upon children in a way that like they're like, it feels very much to me like if you just give it to very young people, there's no questions asked about it, and you can kind of like, you don't have to couch it in a lot. And so like that makes me uncomfortable. I don't care what you're talking about. Like in my house, we have books about like we'll bear share and we'll ladybug hug, and it's about like consent and like personal property versus like communal live, whatever. Like it just makes me very uncomfortable how assumed it is that you are of the same ilk, that you are 100% on board with this. And this is just to have childcare. This is just like to send your kids somewhere. Like there aren't options here that are neutral or like literally like it's not like I'm looking for like a Wiccan daycare. I just need, it would be nice to have an option of any sort that I know I'm sending my kids somewhere that is just not taking that on as a responsibility because I don't think it needs to be.
Right.
And like we talk about everything at home, and I'm not passing my beliefs on to her. I am with an open heart and as honestly as I can to a person I love dearly, telling the truth in a way that makes sense for someone her age. You know, it concerns me that she goes somewhere all the time that like it's with such conviction.
And Christianity is the only religion where it gets to just blend seamlessly into your day without your consent. Yeah. Like I have a math teacher who, when I didn't understand trig, I don't know why I'm trying to say the full word if I can't. When I didn't understand trig, he suggested I pray about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I've overheard conversations like recently, like about people not like getting in an elevated argument about this, like an actual, like they're upset, but like they are conversationally like for a moment heated, trying to decide in a specific scenario whether one should pray for the heart of the ex-husband to change or the judge presiding over the case. What should you pray for as your homework and put in your prayer journal or your prayer box or your whatever, or your prayer planner or your prayer app? Like all of it. I'm bowled over sometimes by the literal nature in which people talk about something that no one can know. I get that it's faith. Like, I believe me, understand. Like, I've tried to find it my whole life because I thought you literally were going to go to hell and never see your loved ones again. Like, this isn't something I want to come off as flippant about in any way. I have done all the soul searching. Like, I've read a lot of the Bible. Like, I went to Catholic school, K through 12. I wanted to get it like so bad it hurt. And like it's like a kid trying to be good at sports that just like has 2 left feet. Like it never clicked for me in a way that I blame myself for. And then like have had so many boyfriends and ex-spouses, honestly, that are so holier than thou, literally. They definitely would use the tenets of Christianity and whatever flavor they choose or were raised in to justify their behavior, decisions they've made in life, but very cherry picked, not at all ever discussing anything that would come up like hypocritical. Like, okay, for instance, I had a significant other that I was trying to compromise with and say, look, let's split the difference and go Episcopal. Like if we have to be a member of same type of society that is
Mm-hmm.
worshiping like Jesus Christ, JC himself? Can it be somewhere where gay people are allowed to sit in the audience and a woman can be the priest?
Yeah.
Can we do that? That would be fine. I would feel like for my daughter to be exposed to, and I could get there with that. I was told, no, we aren't going to go somewhere that exists because a man wanted to get divorced. Like, let's pick one thing out of a literal history of hundreds of thousands of mistakes of years. Like, oh my, I just, like, I'm trying so hard to like meet you there. And like,
So, so
the person saying this to me was divorced also.
mm,
Like, I
also
just
that.
don't, here's what I don't understand. I just don't get it. Like, practice what you preach. Literally, I don't respect a lot of it because I don't see it in action. And I
And I
live where it's supposed to be like flourishing.
and I think part of my break from Christianity and the beliefs that were imposed on me, and not even very well, just lazily
Absolutely.
suggested to me, is I would watch women need to get out of bad marriages and then not do it because divorce was a sin,
Wasn't allowed.
or wouldn't get support from family members or the church community that they belong
Mm-hmm.
to.
Yep.
And it made me really mad. And I have no experience as a single woman of needing to get divorced, but the only thing that makes me comfortable with the idea of marriage is that there's a way to get out of it if I need to be out.
And you and everyone else. Like, I'm sorry. Just, it's not like we live in like, it's not 1804. Like, this is
Mhm.
like, you understand going into something that nothing is forever. Anything can happen. Of course, you're not planning on
Right.
that being the case. Like, nobody starts a job, like, can't wait to be fired or leave for another
Mhm.
reason, that like, I can't wait for that next like huge life change. Like, it's just something that being realistic and being a human in modern society, is there. Like,
Mhm.
and I say that because I can't stand the like faux pearl clutching shock. I can't, but our vows from people who like, I'll be real, I've been married twice. Like, I I just have lots of thoughts on like why people get married, and then don't act like it's such a surprise. Nobody should be surprised here. Everyone's seen the statistics, and that sounds very like nihilistic of me. I can't help but be realistic at this point about like what that means.
Right. Right. Sometimes my circumstances change and I need a paper to get out
Mm-hmm.
of a circumstance that I put
Right.
myself in.
Right.
And I just think that when the Ten Commandments were written, or when they became popular in England, or any of it, people were living to like 35. So you were
Right.
maybe at most married for 10 to 20
Maybe.
years. And I made this point sometimes in an online group that I'm in, we play mythology trivia.
Oh, really?
And someone made a joke about the Greek Parthenon, the gods,
Mm-hmm.
divorcing and spouse swapping and doing whatever they do. And I said, finally, I was like, well, eternity is long. You would need to take breaks from one another.
Because I mean, you would like, let's be real.
So eternity is long. If I'm living to 90, 45 years also feels long.
It is.
And it
I mean,
feels
like, it's your
like
life.
and it feels like I could go through 5 different iterations of myself. And if you loved all 5 of those iterations of myself within those 40 years, we could rock and roll. But I have been in too many relationships where they've started to resent me around like month 2,
Right.
that I also can't have faith that if I change in a way that you don't really appreciate, that you're
Right.
going to treat me well,
Right.
or that I'm still going to want you or you're still going to want me. And I
Right.
think that should be fine.
I think you're triggering so much, like, yes, like, just deeply agree. And all that is so resonant. Like, I feel like Christianity, and especially where I'm from, is grooming you to be on this like point system where you are forever gaining approval under the watchful eye of a male. Like it literally is, don't fuck up because eternal happiness could be yours. Is that not every Disney movie? I mean, like,
Yeah.
when we came up, like, it was like Ariel giving her voice away to fucking go meet a dude she just doesn't even know. Like,
And then at the end of the day, it's not even true. And I know this because I went to a Catholic college and we studied in one of our core classes the story of Moses. And Moses took all the whiny Hebrews he could find and he led them through the desert and he listened to them bitch and moan and whine and hate on him. And he was like, come on, everyone, we just got to keep the faith. And he goes, we're going to keep the faith and we're getting to the promised land. And I swear it's happening. And please stop making mistakes. And he helped them along and he kept them fed and he kept them moving. And one night, those Hebrews went wild.
Yep.
Sure and did. They like started worshiping a ram or something. And they went,
resource.
And Moses lost his shit for 30 seconds and he hit a rock.
Yeah.
And God said, no promised land for Moses, just for the whiny Hebrews. Because Moses lost faith in me. And I remember studying that story.
Weren't you just like, no?
In a core class. And I remember saying out loud to my male professor, dick move.
Right.
And
I could never get past the flood. I could never get past Noah's Ark. Like I can remember, and it's so my OCD. Like I just want to go back and like hug this little kid, but like I was just so like relentless in religion class, which was every class. Math class was a religion class in my school. Like you could very easily get off on a tangent. I was just like, and I wasn't in no way, like I didn't want to be rebellious. I did not want that kind of attention. I wanted to be studious, to get it, to have it all click, and to like really it all be like genuine. That's what I craved. Like I just wanted to like, I was never trying to be cheeky and question authority and just be like, fuck you. Like there were kids like that in my class, like when we were in 4th grade, whatever. No, I just legit wanted to know if like Alf the alien landed in Sudan. Right. And was like, I am the promised one. And like, they all just started worshiping him. And then they had babies and they were like, Alf is God. Those babies, if they died from no fault of their own or their parents or anything, they're just fucking children out in the world that just being born. That's all they've done. They're going to go to hell because they didn't know Jesus. And those poor 25-year-old women, I can remember these teachers just being like, damn bitch. Like, I don't fucking know. Like, and being like, if they're meant to meet Jesus, they will, or whatever their original opinion in that moment happened to be. And it never was good enough for me. And I always would bring it home over dinner. And I swear, I shit you not, I could see on my mom's face, like, do we have to, like, I did this to her, so I guess we can't just like roll out now. You know what I mean? Like, It was like, damn, like, I'm taking this shit seriously. Like, I need answers.
So after I called God a dick in my college class and my professor waited for lightning to strike either he or me. And he went, Natalie. And I was like, it is a dick move. I go, do you know how pissed off I would be if I had to listen to you bitch and moan in the desert of all places? And because I am a dehydrated bitch and I need an outlet, I hit a rock.
Right.
And then you just rip away and I have to watch all the other whiny people.
Oh, hell no.
Who got to the promised land on my back go, but I don't get to go because I had a tantrum. And then they explain to you that Old Testament God and New Testament God are different.
It's sort of different. It's like, so what I'm hearing is that my abusive partner, it's okay because they're not even really the same person. This angry man is like just a different guy who just like, whatever, let's just, under the rug. The other, you're so right. Like that always stuck in my craw too. Like, I just can't with like then why is there the Old Testament? What am I reading this for? If this isn't, because they get creative. Like when you really push like a nosy little bitch like I was when I was 7, you know, like just being obstinate and like trying so hard to like genuinely understand this, and not understanding or ever even thinking the person, the gatekeeper here, is like, they just don't know. I'm just thinking like, we're having a problem with communication. I need to be clearer. Like, I want to know exactly X, Y, and Z. Like, tell me this. And there can be no answer to this. I was always left unsatisfied in a way that I feel like it just was teased out of me over years to not believe and not trust, because I get what faith is. I wish still that that's something that I just was inspired by in the way that some people find comfort in, because in moments of life that are very dark, that would be very nice. But I don't understand it in the way that I feel my society and culture expects when you walk in the door of an antique store, let's say.
And I think what was hardest for me was when I began to find faith in my own power and my own sense of morality and my own place in the world and the collective. I kind of realized that I didn't need a babysitter in the sky. And then I didn't realize, and then it fucks with your brain. I swear, I cried in therapy about this today, because it's like, when you feel like you have a babysitter in the sky handing out trials or handing out accolades and reward, to be a person who is constantly working very hard to be a good friend, to be a good daughter, to be good at podcasting, to do all of the things, you become very product oriented instead of process oriented, because you're not rewarded for the process. Right. Moses wasn't rewarded because he walked them through the desert for 40 years.
No.
He lost his cool at the last second, and that one thing cost him.
Huh? Capitalism. It sounds like capitalism.
It sounds like capitalism. It sounds like how you're not allowed to struggle in America.
Right. Like, you have to be good at, you get paid for being good at something.
Right. So then I lose sight of the process. Like, today I had a meltdown, and I decided that none of my hard work mattered because I haven't woken up yet writing for HBO Max and being best friends with Kesha, and I am impatient.
I feel that.
So I had a meltdown, and a man that I've talked about on this podcast before, who is very close to me, tried to make it better. And he said, but I hope that you know, in the year that you've been working on where you want to be, you have made so many steps towards it. And then I had to remind myself that me and my stupidity have no bounds because I have time blindness. And I went, fuck, I've only been doing this a year.
It feels like time blindness. Wow, it's the best.
It feels like 8 years, and that I should have already won an award.
Yes. You're like judging yourself for this like lifetime that hasn't transpired. Yeah, like you literally are like looking at yourself past the finish line from this like vantage point that is not existing in this world yet. I so feel you.
And then when it comes to dating and forming relationships with other people, when you immediately tell people, well, my belief system centers around me, and sometimes I channel that power through a rose quartz because it's pretty.
Exactly. Or a rosary.
Or
like
I
say this all the time.
I have
like,
a
it's
witchy
not so
rosary.
different even. It's not so different even. Like,
I have a mala. It's also made of beads, and it also has a tassel on it like a rosary. But it's focused on me and not all of these outside forces that are quote unquote outside of my control. But I'm not allowed to be tempted by them.
Right.
Or I'm not allowed to be tricked by them, because Eve also wasn't allowed to be tricked.
Oh, no, that's on you too. No, that's you too, Eve. Like, that's you will bring down everything.
I also had to walk away when it was explained to me that childbirth is excruciating because Eve sinned. And I was like, I don't even know that bitch.
Girl, having been through it and my epidural only taking on the right side of my body, fuck her. Yeah. If that is ever
I don't even know her.
Like, but also, what are you telling me right now? I'm sorry. Like, What?
And then I began teaching at a Catholic school because a girl needed a job.
Yeah, right.
And for the first couple of years, it was fine. It was fine because I can teach religion like a reading lesson. We just comprehend it and we talk about it and how it
Like
makes
Shakespeare,
us
right?
feel. Um, and then the archdiocese around here started to get petty because a school in the state fired a woman because they found out that she was in a
A
living
lesbian.
partnership with another woman. So they found out that she was a
Yes.
lesbian.
Yep.
They fired her. She sued and she won because it's discrimination. However, being a lesbian is against Catholic doctrine.
Yeah.
So the archdiocese that my school was affiliated with found a loophole and
Nice.
said, we will write it in everyone's contract that you have to follow Catholic doctrine to the
Wow.
letter or we can fire you on site. So that means I couldn't do the ice bucket challenge because whatever
Oh,
that was for had uh stem cell research
right,
involved.
right, right.
Um if anyone, I had to become ridiculously secretive about my birth control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I I also had to start lying about the fact that I was confirmed because I never committed because I have commitment issues.
Nice. Interesting. Plot
And
twist.
when I was supposed to be confirmed, my grandmother was sick and passing away. So my mother
Oh,
allowed me to
nice.
stop going to CED.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I never got confirmed. And my sister got confirmed when she was an adult, I believe because her friend needed a buddy to go to the classes with her.
Right, right.
We all have our reasons for doing things.
Absolutely.
Um, and when I was asked if I was interested in getting confirmed, I said no. And when I was asked why, I go, it seems really hypocritical to commit myself to something for life that I'm not sold on and that I actually don't give a shit about. It wasn't even like that I was rewriting my whole code on what I had been taught about spirituality and women and spirituality and all of it. I literally just didn't go. I
Mm,
didn't go to church. Why would I commit myself to the church?
right, right.
I would always get, as a teenager, really claustrophobic in church, like just really
Mm-hmm.
hot, like feel really oppressive. Like my breathing would get real shallow. A man I've tolerated before and slept with would tell me it's the sin festering in your belly, Natalie, and we would laugh
Shut
about it.
up.
He was
Oh my
like joking.
God.
He's like, Natalie, it's because you walk into church and
Yeah.
it's just like the fire in your belly.
You're
It's the
reminding me
sin.
so much of my super hot married with a child, beautiful, lovely human friend who happens to be lesbian. When we were in Catholic school, we were just like attached at the hip. So we were always
Mhm.
like sitting next to each other in mass or whatever. She more than once like fainted in the middle of mass.
Now I have to sign a paper every year that says that I believe in a bunch of shit that I don't believe in. Like I believe it to like I agree to be pro-life. I agree to
Okay,
stop stem cell research.
how do you feel about this?
So I had to leave the school, right? Like you sign a piece of paper and you have to like basically say I agree with all
I've
of
done
this.
this with many jobs, and I always, especially, I mean, to be honest, especially like podcasting and like doing anything that I'm putting myself out there and putting a spotlight on any opinion or
Mhm.
experience I've had. Like, how does that make you feel? Because I feel like it's illegal. It's illegal.
Well, it felt very illegal, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're funded by the church and not the state, you just get to
You're
fucking
fine. There's not
run
illegal,
wild.
right? It's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was offered a conversion therapist and a job in the same conversation one time at tea at a woman's house. Like,
No,
yeah.
that's a
Oh,
no for
yes.
me.
Yeah, yeah. No, she was rightly convinced I was struggling with the challenge air quote of homosexuality.
Mhm.
And this is my busy mom's Bible study. And I was merely asking her because she was like being a mouthpiece for the church that I was going to at the time. I just wanted to know, like an idiot. I thought you could just like go to these classes and like have your notebook and be like, here's my question. So I was reflecting and meditating on this last night, and I was wondering this thing. No one gives a shit. No. They want you to show up cute with your skinny latte, pray for your husbands at work, while you then read a book by Max Lucado, who, hey, bro, if you're listening, just like, you know what you can go do with yourself. I'm not a fan. Please don't describe women of the Bible as busty blondes at a truck stop. Because that was literally the end. That was the day I was like, I can't come back. I can't come back to it. I cannot do this. I can't do this. Because you can ask questions. You cannot ask questions. And she was asking why I was leaving. And I was like, I can't. I just thought it was real. Like, I feel dumb. I thought that like all the things on the brochure about show up and you like, it's just a safe place to explore scripture. I took that at face value. I'm so sorry. I did not understand what this was. And that like you were supposed to drink the Kool-Aid before you got here. It was insulting the level of like disgust with which they treated like my actual questions. Donald Trump was the president at the time. You can imagine where these went. Like they literally are just like, well.
And it also like bred paranoia in you to like stick to your guns. And I think
it's gaslighting on a major level in that like you're not being acknowledged for the question you're actually asking. Like they're just like, I didn't hear you, sort of.
Right. And I think that's what floors me away about the way that I was raised kind of adjacent to church is all of the things that were denied me. Like all of the orgasms that were denied me because I was too nervous to masturbate until I was like 23. Or I know. Rest in peace to
no
all
shower head. Like
no shower head.
Damn. John Stamos was my bathtub faucet for a long time. I literally would think about him in Full House.
I also think about like queerness. I've only dated straight men. Has it ever worked out for me? No. Did I ever think to myself, you are more emotionally and mentally intimate with any woman that ever walks closer to you than any of the men that you've ever dated? Not until now.
Because why would you? I mean, like, that is a peninsula, if you will, that no one is inviting you to explore in your youth as a religious person. Absolutely, you were supposed to like shut away in the biggest closet you can afford, like any of these feelings. And if you can't shut them away efficiently, I can get you the number of someone that can help.
Exactly. Abortion, another big hot topic where I just don't feel like it's my business. I remember having that conversation with my mom and us both kind of reaching that conclusion where it's like, we don't know if we would do it, but we also don't know if it's our business to bar you from doing it.
It's not. I mean, not to be like, I am so in sync with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as an adult who has all of these thoughts and feelings and is wanting to be a person living in the modern world, I have to sign a paper that says that I will not. And and then there's the whole month of May.
Oh, girl, as a Catholic, that whole thing, man.
The whole month of May, where as a woman who just wants women to feel proud of being women and one with themselves and their sexuality and empowered to make choices for themselves, is an entire month of telling little girls, Mary, the mother of God, did it right.
Yep.
Mary
We're
Magdalene.
Gonna have a parade for her.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna wear a flower crown and be real excited about it.
Yes.
Oh,
and that's why
was my favorite time of year. I was like, hell yeah, put me in a white dress and give me that flower crown. And now I'm like, have you seen Midsummer? You should.
Okay. I love Midsummer. Yes. It's so good. And there's a juxtaposition that not only did the Mother Mary do it correctly because she didn't do it at all, but Mary Magdalene, who needed to feed herself, sinner, going to hell because she fell on hard times and needed to suck a little dick for bread.
Right. Because
because she was hungry. During our comprehensive consent episode, we talked about how dangerous
I
it
love that
is
episode.
thank you, to only think of things in the binary.
Yes. Oh, I literally wrote that in my notebook while I was listening to it because it just, yeah. And I'm like, that's my motto right now. Like,
And my motto used to be that like everything is gray. And I would tell that to people whenever they felt bad about anything. I'd be like, but everything is gray. Like, it's fine. There was good and there was bad, and it was gray. And I've had to get through really bad relationships by going, it's fine that he loved me for being so confident, but also hated the fact that I garnished more attention from him or than him, because
amen.
everything is gray. And what I realized during that episode is I was bred to only believe in heaven and hell and sin and whatever good
Wrong and
people
right,
do.
black and
Wrong and
white.
right.
It's, yes, absolutely.
And it gets really hard to be an adult living in a world still trying to fight the binary, because you know that everything is gray, but you still fall into these patterns where
Conditioning is strong. Yeah.
and you want there to be heroes and villains, and you want to point fingers and be like, you motherfucker, you were wrong
Dude,
and I was right.
I'm going through this right now with my daughter, she's 3.5, and she's obsessed with, she did not get this from me, but she loves like the Marvel universe, right? So she's like all the time, like with all the questions, is he good or bad? And every time anybody comes on screen or on the page now, it's like, I need, like, right now, is he good or bad? Right. And we have some very smartly written children's books where I'm like, well, it's layered. It's very like, I'm too tired to have this conversation right now because it's like 8:00.
But here's the kicker. I wish Marvel was my religion, because the quote unquote villains sometimes make really good points. And I sit there and I'm like, ooh, Stanley, you're so tricky.
I know.
Killmonger has some really good points. I had a man tell me one time that he was really surprised that he was dating me, because he always thought he would be dating some good girl from a good church.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I went, well, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a good girl from a good church.
That needs to be a bumper sticker.
And thank you. And I remember asking him when he was talking about a phone call with his mom, and he was nervously being very anxious about trying to find a church. And he found a church once, but he was like the only white guy there, and that made him very uncomfortable. And I'm just like rolling my eyes, because I was like, how am I dating you, a person who is uncomfortable in a room full of people of color, and wondering why I'm not praying more? And
right.
And I remember just looking at him and going, but why is it important? And he looked at me. I was like, no, seriously, like, what does that provide for you? Like, why is it important? Because I want to respect it. People
I want
have
to understand it. Right.
People have told me before why it is so important to them. And once I get the story, I go, I respect it. But I don't respect just being told that I should act some way because it makes you uncomfortable, or because it makes you comfortable, because really you're trying to make your mom comfortable, which was our entire relationship.
I don't care about your mom.
Right, because I don't care about your mom. And so he couldn't tell me why it was important to him. He reiterated that it was something that his mom really wanted to happen. And I was like, cool. Is it something that you really want to have happen?
Right.
And he went, and then I get bold. And I was like, because I feel like if it was something that you really wanted to have happen, you'd do more Google searches. You'd go to more than one church.
Right.
And then get uncomfortable because you're the only white person there. And like America, Penelope, she's just always trying to make her debut. And in America, I have found that it is next to impossible to be a person who explores. So I was watching Married at First Sight because I'm trash. And
I'm in the bin with you then, girl.
And have you been watching season 12? It just dropped on Hulu.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not
Okay, well,
current.
it's wild, and I'm going to not try and spoil this for you. But a woman finds herself married to a man who continuously lies to her and has impregnated his former fiance within like weeks of him being on the show.
Okay.
And she will not divorce him because she continuously says that God put her in this position for some reason.
Oh, I have to watch this.
Uh-huh. And then you jump to another character or couple and
Yeah, right.
yeah. And this man is explaining to his now wife why it's important to raise his children in church, and she's explaining to him all of her church trauma and why it is important for her to raise children that see it all.
Yeah.
I believe I was robbed of an existence where I got to see it all.
Right.
I remember asking my mom on the way home from the American Girl doll store where we took my friend.
Lucky. I want to go so bad. I still do.
We
I would
can
go with you
as
tomorrow.
grown-ups. Like,
I'll buy a plane ticket, girl. Like,
so we were coming home from the American Girl doll store, and we had taken my friend who happened to be Jewish. And I went, Mom, I just found out that the difference between Christians and Jewish people is that Jewish people are cool with everything that God did except for the Jesus part. And she went, yeah, that's basically it.
yeah.
And I went, so is my friend going to hell?
This is you right now are describing me in that Busy Moms Bible study. It's like record scratch.
Like I'm 7 years old and I just need to know.
You're just like, I just want to know.
I go, because we're becoming really good friends, and I don't know if I want to
be friends if they're not going to heaven.
I don't want to be in heaven without her. Like, that would make me sad.
From the mouths of babes.
And my mom didn't know how to answer. I don't believe that anyone knows the answer to that question. No.
Just like they don't know if Sudan was worshiping Elf or a Coke can, what would happen to those babies?
No, and I think about all of the women in the world who have it worse for me or worse than me in the name of things that they have been saddled with because generations have believed it.
In the name of like religion.
In the name of religion. And then I think about the way that men have been allowed to treat me and why they feel entitled to treat me that way and why I believe that it's okay for them to treat me that way.
Right. This is actually an important chapter not to leave out of this discussion that you mentioned the moment that you sort of like broke with Catholic, that you were like, thank you, not interested. Just sort of like, this is cool. Like, I'm not going to marry you, Jesus. Like, I'm not going to get confirmed in the dress. I did all that and was like, didn't know there was a choice really at that point. But that light went off inside of me the day that visiting priest who was like coming to introduce himself, that was new in the diocese, was taking confession after mass one day and asked me and kept asking me and kept like asking me for more details about did I masturbate? When did I masturbate? What did I think about? How did I masturbate? Like, just, I knew like at some point, like I'm in 7th grade at this point, like I was like, okay, this is just like some old perv, like being like gross. And that to me was like just the most true example of like, I can't trust this because I don't know. And I don't know everybody involved. This is a large organization. Like, it is a lot to ask me to put all of my faith, all those marbles in one bucket when like you're talking about like a chain of command that goes all the way to the Vatican. And it's all men I've never met. Here's this guy. He's not so cool. I just don't know.
And then as an adult who is forming her own beliefs in the world, it's very hard to live in a world where this is the norm and you're automatically the outsider.
Yeah.
And when you push a little and you ask someone, why is that your reality? And they have no answer.
It just makes it so uncomfortable. They are so uncomfortable.
And I have a lot of great friends who can answer the question and then ask me back, like, well, why is this your belief system? And then tell me, we've always loved you because you have a point of view and you stick to that point of view. And whether it's ridiculous or not, you have an opinion, you know your opinion, and you know yourself through that opinion. And and I wish there were more people like that, because then
Right.
I wouldn't feel so uncomfortable in places of worship. Then I would feel more comfortable being a part of the dinner prayer. But it
Right.
does get
Right.
really triggering for me because it's directly linked to the way that I view my oppression sexually,
Mm-hmm.
my gender. I feel like a lot of men got to believe that they could one up me or put me in my place or dampen my spirit because I was supposed to be obeying them to begin with.
Right.
And
I mean, that's real. That is
yeah.
real. Like, yeah, it's played out in big and small ways every day where I live, and it's impossible not to see. And it's, I mean, to the point, I'm a stylist at a salon. I do hair.
Mhm.
I saw recently a post that had gone viral that was like a cross stitch sampler that said, "I don't give a fuck what your husband cares, like what they think about your hair." And it's so like it. I cannot tell you how many times people sit down and are like, well, I love a good side bang, but Timmy hits my husband. He don't like the side bang. So can we just do he really likes the blunt bang, or like just anything they want? Like, it's like, I don't,
How
what?
does your husband know what a blunt vein is?
It's amazing though. Like
I don't
the
even know what a
most,
blunt vein is. I just
the most like harried I have ever heard a client being like, this has to be fixed right now. It's not just like, it's not some Karen that's going to some like event.
Mhm.
It is someone who is literally blowing my ass up at like 9 p.m. on a Sunday because we went too dark on the low lights and their husband really likes them blonde, and they didn't realize like how much their husband liked them blonde, but they like, it's a problem. Like, they can't really like leave to go out of town before she gets this fixed. So can I just like go to her house and like fix it right now? And like, I'm hearing the urgency. Like I am just as you are assuming I am Christian walking into a place of employment that no one should be asking me anything about this.
Right.
This person is like, you get me, right? Like, yes, it is. I understand that like you are here with me because I'm psychotic enough to think that this is appropriate.
Right.
It is so the patriarchal cultural that type of like religious environment breeds, where you're right, it's like baked into common sense that you are obeying whatever elder or man is at the reins, like that. Its implications are far reaching and very wide in a way that like I don't think enough people consider who work in the space of religion or are educators or have, just any part of the machine.
Yeah. We almost could have done a two-parter on this because we have arrived at the hour.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know. It's
But
fun.
you know the two traditions. We
Mm-hmm.
gotta do our growth moment and then we have to manifest for a better future.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first?
Um, so I feel like talking to someone else about like my moment of growth here, just about personally how it's affected us, the male lens through which religion so often is viewed and portrayed, from literally starting at the Bible on, like, every girl is Eve. It is very hard to feel good about yourself if you are being raised in an environment where you're taught that literally everything in the world that is wrong is the fault of the first woman.
Yeah.
And the first man, it's interesting, like that, when you say that,
He was
like,
just laying
you're
around.
talking about the president,
Yeah.
or like, right, or like, there's nothing but negative implications to the story of
Mhm.
Adam and Eve. And I've always had issue with that. But yeah, it's interesting to talk to someone who grew up somewhere so different than me and in different ways encountered the same reality and the same constraints. And I think we've touched on a lot of like Catholicism that is to blame for a little bit of it, but like I have an interesting blend of that sort of mysterious and superstitious, like I feel like people who aren't Catholic, sometimes, especially in the South, are like, oh, it's like voodoo and like necklaces and shit, right? Like y'all like worship Mary. And I'm like, it's incredibly oppressive. And I felt like I could never have sex ever or touch my own body. Yes. But,
Right.
but
Then
we
a
could
couple
drink
times a
wine.
year, they literally smoke you. So it feels
Right.
even
That's
more like
you're
you're
God, you're
choking.
blessed.
Like,
Yeah. I go into a tiny hole and tell a man what I did wrong.
yeah.
So that's cool. But then to go to the swing from that to like Southern Baptist and the more traditional sort of like Southern flavors of Christianity, it's a mind fuck in a way that like it's a universal language. It's not something that's regional, I don't think at all. And like because people are more upfront with it here, it feels more directly oppressive, but it's that's something that we all share. I think the right to religious freedom and just spiritual individuality is universal. Like that's something that like it's okay that we demand. It doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what the culture is, it doesn't matter what is polite for young ladies to do. Like that's where I'm growing here tonight.
I think my biggest growth area is honestly, I didn't think I was going to talk that much this episode because I didn't really feel like religion had a big role in my life. And and now I'm just kind of like having it all hit me.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Of where these systems that have oppressed me, kept me down, or whatever come from, and why it's so easy for them to be instilled. And I know that I'm going to have to keep growing because this episode will reach people who I love and care about, and they will be upset that I feel this way about something that is so special and dear to them.
And I respect that immensely. And like my truth, I don't want it to hurt anybody that I love ever, but it doesn't change just what you feel and what's real for you.
And I would love to have that conversation with someone who I love and trust because I very much do want to hear why this is something that is so important to you, because that's what sells me on it. I think that's what ended up selling my family on the crystals and the malas and the manifesting and the meditating that I did. It was so important to me.
Right. They see the change that it's having in you because it's.
So what I'm hoping going forward is that just because my belief system isn't the quote unquote white normal belief system that our country loves to thrive under, that at some point I get to have more conversations with why God and Christianity triggers deep insecurities and hurt within me, and why it's okay for me to be hurt by that, while it is also okay for that to be something that never hurt you and actually brought you joy. Like ice cream flavors. Not everyone likes mint chocolate chip. They're wrong, but not everyone likes it. And so I'm hoping that at some point, all of this just becomes easier to talk about. And we stop putting people in buckets like, well, Natalie can't be my friend because she's going right to hell.
Right. Like when you were 7, you were like trying to make sense of it in your brain.
I was trying to make sense of a friend who I loved.
I did the same thing.
And I hope has found peace because unfortunately she did pass away when I was in college. And I know that she was one of the good people on this earth. So in my book, she gets whatever paradise she wanted or existence in the afterlife that she wanted.
Well, look, you're exhibiting my manifestation literally in front of my eyes.
Well,
I just want all hearts to remain open, regardless of pain they have endured at the hands of male-dominated religious experiences or practices or organizations. If it is something that drives you, fulfills you, that you feel connected to, it's worthy of you practicing and getting more, I think, involved in. It is not your job to find what that is for other people. And as someone who has not found that, not for a lack of searching, it just feels hard sometimes to be constantly questioned. I'm a single mother. Like, there are
Right.
reasons, but like, about whether I have a home church, if I've met Jesus, if I'm in one with Christ, like, it's a lot. Like, I also struggle with depression and other various mental illnesses. Like,
Right.
I'm doing good some days to like get to work and like do it. And like, that, man, that's a lot. It's a lot. Just, I think, be respectful of your own truth and place and your own, like, the weight you're giving this. You need to give it to others as well, and respect that space in their life. And just, if somebody wants guidance from you in a spiritual way or about religion, I promise you they're going to come to you and ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get that, and for that to like permeate, I think, in an evangelical sort of driven culture. But it's just something that is going to make a person who doesn't feel like they do have an idea, which I think is a lot of us, about the big answers in life. Like, you shut down when then confronted with like these like incredibly intense questions about like why, or what your experience was, or if you were doing this or that. I think just being accepting of kindness and positive energy is a place all of us could start, and not enough people practice. Even those, Natalie, who are Christian, that I know. Can you believe it?
Never.
Yeah.
What are your plugs?
There are not that many at the moment. I am a professional amateur podcast guest, so
And
find
a
me
great
at
one.
final. Thanks. I'll be your friend too if we have stuff in common and we gel. Like, I love pen pals. So I'm Final Girl Scout on Twitter, all the socials, Instagram, Final Girl Scout at gmail.com. I'm always looking to collaborate musically, or about any type of horror projects that somebody's doing that's creative. I like to write. Yeah, I'm pretty much an open book. Just hit me up if interested.
Thank you for being my friend and my professional amateur podcast guest.
Oh, I love you. You know, I love you. This has been amazing.
When we get offline, I'm going to tell you the new episode that I've already created in my head.
Yes, I cannot wait.
But tolerators, you know what to do. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss my opinion on anything. 5-star reviews would be great. I have started on weekends just screenshotting nice things people tell me about this show or the Fireside Show, and being like, this counts as a review, and posting it online.
I love it. I love it.
You can get a hold of me at Instagram on Men I've Tolerated Pod, or my personal Instagram, Natalie K124. And make sure to connect with me on Instagram, because that's how you get the Fireside link for the fun live shows where we play. I've been calling them games or extension activities.
Oh, I'm
based
intrigued.
on the episodes.
I love it.
And you can email us questions in the email that's on the link tree in the Instagram. Thank you again, Elizabeth, for being here. Tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything that you're tolerating, especially people who are using something that I do believe was created out of love to keep you in a place where you feel small and lesser than. Smiles are for joy.
Damn straight.
We love you.